A school district in Colorado that was passing out Bibles has decided to stop passing out Bibles after they needed to be fair and also send out information to its students about Satanists and atheists. All right, so the Freedom from Religion Foundation explained earlier this month that it had asked the Delta County School District to begin handing out free thought materials after the district refused to stop distributing Bibles to students. Okay, so after this happened, they're like, okay, fine, we'll pass out atheist material. That's okay with us. And then they immediately decided, you know what? Our school district doesn't want to endorse religion or get into these discussions about religion, so let's get rid of the Gideon Bibles that we've been passing out, as long as we don't have to promote anything satanic or atheist.
Yeah, my guess is that they cared more about the atheist pamphlets than they did about the satanic pamphlets. Because, I mean, really, I know they're into the voodoo, so who knows? But do they really think that the kids are going to be like, oh, yeah, God or Satan, Satan. Like,
yeah.
I think that what they were more concerned about is if they have information that is being passed out to the kids that shows the Bible isn't true, they're like, oh, no, we don't want to expose them. Like, if you really believe, if you said to me, okay, I'm going to give a neutral person a Bible and information that shows the Bible isn't true, you know what I would say? Do it.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, not in the context of a school, that's public, and we got to keep religion, any kind of religion or lack thereof, in terms of proselytizing anything out of the schools, out of our government, right? But to a neutral person, I'd be like, yeah, give them both. I bet I win, right?
Yeah.
But from their perspective, like, no, okay, that's the one thing that'll get me to stop giving out Bibles if I have to give the other side, right?
Yes.
So I love what Freedom for Religion Foundation did here. To be fair, I'm biased here. They gave me an award, not a big deal. But they call it free thought materials, what they pass out.
Yeah.
And then they made a great case here. They said, look, one, it's obviously unconstitutional. Okay. But beyond that, they said, you're passing out these Gideon Bibles, and it could scar some of the kids. And I'm sure, like, you're actually, oh, come on, scar some of the kids. What are you talking about? It's like, no, in the Bible it says that if you don't believe in this thing, you're going to suffer eternal damnation, that you're going to be roasted over an open fire. Now imagine you're a kid, you're not an adult, and you don't happen to be Christian, whether you're Hindu, Jewish, or you don't believe in any of the religions, and your teacher or your school gives you something that says you'll burn in hell forever. That could be pretty traumatic, right? And not everybody's Christian.
Just their age they're going through is difficult enough, it's traumatic. Yes. And then add more to the fire, it's like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, look, according to the Bible, again, if you're going to be literal about it, if you don't come through Jesus Christ, you will go to hell. And so Mahatma Gandhi is burning over an open fire right now. And if you're a Hindu kid going to this school and you hear your role model, Gandhi, is being tortured by Satan, you'd be like, Jesus, what's going to happen to me? Right?
Yeah.
So it's the most fair point they could possibly make.
So there's a big debate in the country. It's not really a debate. It's mostly the right wing pushing for the privatization of education in the U.S., right? And of course, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't want taxpayer money going toward educating other people's kids, right? They're very individualistic about things like that. They don't care about the community. But there's another element, another component to it. When you privatize schools, they're not bound by the same, constitutional guidelines that public schools are bound by. So for instance, if you're a public school, if you're using taxpayer money to fund an organization or a school or whatever it is, you're not allowed to endorse or push for one specific type of religion. And as you know, through all the stories that we've done, the right wing hates that. They want to be able to have religion in schools, a specific type of religion in schools. And so you privatize everything, you don't have to worry about, certain rules that apply to public schools. That's a huge issue. I mean, think about what happens in states like Louisiana. They privatize the schools. Most of the schools are religious, right? And they push their religious doctrine on their students. It's just the way it works.
And not a lot of private schools teaching Islam.
Yeah, of course not.
And so they figure, great, your religion doesn't get one, ours does, because we have more people, hence more money. And if we just get the meddlesome government out of it, then we can push any propaganda we like.
Yeah, stop indoctrinating the students with science. Let's focus more on religion.
And when you say privatize, schools. You mean charter schools? This would be a big push about privatize, right? That's what we're talking about.
And then there's also Catholic schools.
And
Yeah.
they want to take that government money and give it to just right. And that was what the big push of George Bush was, to give government money to private religious charities, right? That was his big deal. That was his way to shore up. So he would give government money to them to go do stuff. Then, the Catholic Church gets a bunch of money to do good works, right? To go and to do charity for people and take care of them, what have you. And that's why that Dolan was saying, well, maybe we won't take that money because if Obamacare is going to, remember that whole controversy?
Yeah.
So I also, it's not only the right wing wants to privatize public schools, but there's also a lot of corporatist neoliberals like Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, who's closed down 200 schools in poor neighborhoods and wants to privatize those schools, right? So it's not just the right wing. There's lots of neoliberals who are big on that too.
Can you imagine what would happen to student loan debt if we started privatizing all our public schools? Think about how disastrous it is for those who are seeking higher education. How much worse would it be if you can no longer rely on public education? Look, public education has its flaws, and we need to focus on solving those issues. Unfortunately, we focus on the wrong things, like bashing teachers. But if we just stopped allowing Republicans to change the narrative, or at least take over the narrative of education in this country, we would stop privatizing schools. We would stop defunding public schools that are already in poor areas and don't have enough funding to begin with.
Look, guys, it has, for a lot of the major cities in this country, and it might happen in other places as well, but the schools for the well-to-do, and not just the top 1%, but honestly, the top 10%, they've already privatized them. All their kids are going to private schools. And so then that creates an incentive for them to not want to have any more taxes to the public schools that their kids aren't going to. So they're thinking, I'm already paying $30,000 a year for kindergarten, which, by the way, is true in LA. Okay,
Jesus.
$30,000 a year for kindergarten. So now you want me to pay taxes for other people's kids. So once you start, it's a vicious circle. Once you start the private schools, people flee for the private schools, and then they pay so much for them, they want to kill the public schools because it doesn't help them at all.
Look, even if you want to send your kid to a private school and your taxes go toward public schools, like, what do you want? Do you want to live in a nation of idiots? Like, do you want to live in a country full of uneducated people?
But then it becomes welfare instead of something that actually helps us all.
Right.
And once you make it welfare, they feel like, and good, honest people, great people, and even they get a little skittish, like, oh, now I got to pay more taxes. And the more their kids that go to private school, the less money the public schools have, the worse public schools are, and then the more they got to send their kids to private school. And round and round and round we go until at the end it's a disaster.
I feel like there's a lot of fear-mongering when it comes to public schools, too. I went to a public school. It was great. So all of this crap about, public schools are garbage. I got to send all my kids to private schools or else they're not going to get a great education. That's not true. I think that's a lot of propaganda that's being pushed by the media, and people are getting scared, and they're putting all their resources into private schools, and it's exacerbating the issue.
And you know how they always have those studies that show how poorly Americans do when compared to other countries, their education, our kids. Well, Diane Radvich told me that, she gave a speech, and I happened to be there. She didn't tell me we were having lunch or anything, but she said that if you if you control for poverty, that we actually don't do any worse than the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And the rest of the world, by the way, a lot of them don't have to deal with second language learners like we do in America. So we have lots of different problems and different circumstances in America that they don't have in other countries because of the uniqueness of our country. We're a country of immigrants, right? So that's a big difference too. So and by the way, so when they first did the first standardized tests, they did it in the 60s. And America, they did 13 countries or 12. America was the bottom. We were the bottom of as far. And guess what? That hasn't made one bit of difference in our country's future. We still outperformed all the rest of those countries economically. It had nothing to do. So tying test scores, international standardized test scores, to an outcome of a kid's life or an outcome of a culture or an outcome of a country's economy, there's no correlation. Those stats are just shoved down our throats so we can shit on public education in America, even though in most places it does a good job. It's funny, if you go to Beverly Hills High, there's no problem with the education at the public school there. I wonder why that is. So it's not the problem. They have unions at that public school too. They have all the same things that they have at poor schools, except the tax revenue. The base is different, and the way they handle the teachers in poorer schools are much different, right? Yeah. So it's again, privatization of a public schools is not the answer. And that movie, Waiting for Superman, was propaganda, because keep in mind, 4 out of 5 charter schools perform worse, no better or worse than the competing public schools in their same district. And they get to filter out the students they don't want. So I'm a big public school advocate. My wife teaches at a blue ribbon public school, right? So that's a public school that does great work? Yes.